The conference hall on Prime stretched as far as the eye could see. Massive pillars of crystal reached toward a ceiling that seemed to touch the clouds. Representatives from 47 different alien civilizations filled the chamber, their forms ranging from gaseous, from towering giants to tiny beings that floated in containment fields. At the center of it all stood Captain, a human woman in a crisp blue uniform, representing a planet that most of the galaxy had never heard of until recently. His hands trembled slightly as she stood before the Galactic Council. She had practiced her speech 1,000 times during the 6-month journey from Earth. Behind her stood Commander, his military bearing rigid and formal, and Doctor, who clutched a data pad containing humanity's greatest scientific achievements. They were Earth's best hope for joining the galactic community. "Honored members of the Council," began, her voice steady despite her nerves. "Humanity comes before you today as equals, ready to contribute to the greater galactic civilization. We have achieved faster-than-light travel, mastered artificial intelligence, and united our world under a single peaceful government. We ask only for the chance to prove ourselves worthy of membership." The response was not what she had hoped for. A ripple of what could only be described as laughter passed through the assembled aliens. The ambassador, a being of pure energy contained within a crystalline form, spoke first. Its voice echoed through translation devices worn by all attendees. "Faster-than-light travel. Your species achieved this how long ago? 3 years." This tone dripped with condescension. "We mastered this technology before your ancestors crawled from the oceans. Your fusion drives are crude, inefficient, a child's toy compared to our quantum displacement engines." An representative from the civilization clicked its mandibles in what the translator interpreted as amusement. "We have reviewed your history, humans. Constant warfare, destruction of your own environment, primitive weapons using chemical explosions. You only stopped fighting each other a generation ago. How can such a violent species be trusted?" Felt heat rising to her cheeks, but she maintained her composure. "Our past does not define our future. We have learned from our mistakes. We have grown beyond." "Grown?" Another voice interrupted, this one from a methane-breathing delegate whose tank bubbled as it spoke. "You have barely left your own star system. You have no colonies beyond your moon and Mars. Your largest vessel carries fewer than 200 individuals. By what measure have you grown?" Doctor stepped forward, her scientific mind attempting a different approach. "If you would examine our genetic engineering techniques, our quantum computing models, our—" "Outdated by," the ambassador cut her off. "There is nothing you possess that we have not surpassed long ago. You are children playing with tools you barely understand." Commander's jaw clenched. His military training was the only thing preventing him from saying something that would damage Earth's chances even further. He had seen this coming. The galaxy operated on a hierarchy based on technological advancement and age of civilization. Humanity, having only achieved FTL travel 3 years ago, was at the very bottom. The council deliberated for less than an hour. When they returned with their decision, the ambassador delivered it with bureaucratic coldness. "Humanity is granted provisional observer status. You may attend council sessions but have no vote. You are restricted to your home system. No colonization beyond the Sol system is permitted. No access to galactic trade networks. No access to defense pacts or mutual aid agreements. You may reapply for full membership in 500 years, at which point we will review your progress." 500 years. Felt the words like a physical blow. In 500 years, everyone she knew would be long dead. Earth would be isolated, alone, forbidden from expanding into the galaxy while other civilizations claimed every habitable world. "This is unacceptable," Commander said, his voice hard. "We came here in good faith. We have met every requirement for—" "You have met the minimum requirements," the interrupted. "But you lack maturity, cultural sophistication, technological advancement. You are not ready for the responsibilities of galactic citizenship. Consider this a kindness. We could have refused you entirely." The journey back to Earth took 3 months. The New Dawn, humanity's first diplomatic vessel, traveled through the silent void while its crew processed their rejection. Spent most of her time in her quarters, replaying the council session in her mind, wondering if there was anything she could have said differently. Doctor buried herself in research, analyzing every piece of galactic technology she had been allowed to observe. The gap was staggering. Humanity's most advanced computers were equivalent to what the galaxy considered basic calculators. Their weapons systems were laughably primitive. Even their medical technology, which had seemed so impressive on Earth, was centuries behind galactic standards. Commander took the rejection differently. He saw it as a challenge, a gauntlet thrown down. He began drafting plans for Sol system defense, training protocols for a military that might one day need to protect Earth without galactic help. When they finally reached Earth, delivered her report to Chancellor, the elected leader of the United Earth government. The middle-aged man listened in silence, his weathered face showing no emotion until she finished. "So we are alone," he said quietly, "dismissed as primitives, caged in our own system like animals in a zoo." "Yes, Chancellor," confirmed. Stood and walked to the window of his office, looking out over the sprawling city of New Geneva, Earth's governmental capital. Humanity had worked so hard to reach this point. They had ended wars, cured diseases, united under a common purpose. And still, it wasn't enough. "Then we adapt," said finally. "If we cannot expand beyond Sol, we make Sol impregnable. We colonize every moon, every asteroid, every habitable surface within our system. We continue advancing our technology. And when the galaxy is ready to take us seriously, we will be ready to take our place among them." Felt a small spark of hope, and if they never take us seriously? Chancellor turned to face her and she saw steel in his eyes. "Then we will make them." The news spread across Earth within hours. Disappointment turned to determination. Humanity had been rejected, dismissed, and isolated. But they were not broken. Construction projects accelerated. The Mars colonies expanded. Mining operations in the asteroid belt intensified. Shipyards orbiting Luna began producing vessels that, while primitive by galactic standards, represented humanity's refusal to give up. The galaxy moved on, forgetting about the small species in Sector 887. After all, what threat could primitives pose? What difference could they make? In the grand scheme of galactic politics and civilization, humanity was a footnote, barely worth remembering. They would not forget this dismissal. And someday, the galaxy would learn that underestimating humanity was a grave mistake. 3 years had passed since Earth's rejection by the Galactic Council. The Sol system had transformed in that time. Mars now held 3 million colonists in domed cities that dotted the red landscape. The asteroid belt buzzed with mining operations and refueling stations. Europa's ice had been drilled to reach the ocean below, where humanity established their first underwater colony. Earth had turned isolation into opportunity. Captain, now promoted to admiral, stood on the bridge of the Indomitable, humanity's first true warship. It had taken 2 years to build in Mars orbit, cobbled together from mining equipment, civilian technology, and reverse-engineered components from the few alien devices Earth had managed to acquire through back channels. By galactic standards, it was still primitive, but it was theirs, and it was powerful. Lieutenant, her tactical officer, monitored the galactic communication networks that Earth could still access as observers. What she saw troubled her deeply. "Admiral, the traffic is getting worse," reported, her eyes scanning multiple screens simultaneously. "Another system went dark 3 days ago. That makes 6 civilizations in 4 months." Moved to stand beside her, studying the data. The Dominion. 6 months ago, no one in the galaxy had heard of them. They had emerged from the southern reaches of the galaxy like a plague, conquering everything in their path. But they did not simply conquer. They assimilated. They were terrifying in their efficiency. When they defeated a species, they took their technology, their biological advantages, their strategic knowledge. Every victory made them stronger, smarter, deadlier. The first civilization they destroyed had advanced shield technology. The second had biological enhancements that made their soldiers nearly impossible to kill. The third had developed AI weapons systems. Now they possessed all of these advantages and more. Has the Council requested aid from member species? Asked. Yes, Admiral. They have mobilized their defense fleets. 300 warships are being deployed to create a defensive line at the Helix sector, replied. Then she paused. There's no mention of Earth in any of the communications. Of course there wasn't. Earth was primitive, irrelevant, forgotten. Why would the Council waste time warning a species trapped in a single star system? The war was happening thousands of light years away. It would be over before it ever reached Sol. Or so the Council believed. Engineer worked 18-hour days in the orbital construction yards. Under her direction, humanity's shipbuilding capacity had increased dramatically. The Indomitable was no longer alone. 34 warships now formed the Sol Defense Force, a fleet built from cargo haulers, mining vessels, and custom-designed military craft. They were ugly, mismatched, and underpowered compared to galactic standard vessels. But they existed, and they were ready. Wiped sweat from her forehead as she inspected the rail gun installation on the Defiance, the latest addition to the fleet. Rail guns were ancient technology by galactic standards, using magnetic acceleration to fire solid projectiles at incredible speeds. Most advanced civilizations had moved on to energy weapons and exotic particle beams, but had learned that sometimes older technology had advantages. Rail guns were simple, reliable, and required less power than energy weapons. In the right circumstances, they could punch through shields designed to stop lasers and plasma. How many more ships can we build? Commander asked, approaching across the gantry. He had been promoted to head of Sol System Defense, a position that consumed every waking moment. With current resources, maybe 10 more by year's end, replied. But we need more raw materials from the belt, and the miners are already working overtime. Nodded grimly. Do what you can. I have a feeling we are going to need every ship we can build. Doctor had become obsessed with the threat. In her laboratory beneath the surface of Luna, she studied every scrap of information Earth's intelligence services could gather. This adaptive technology was their greatest weapon, but believed it could also be their weakness. They assimilate everything, she explained to Chancellor during one of his regular security briefings. Technology, biology, tactics, they are like a virus, consuming and incorporating whatever they encounter, but viruses can be fought with other viruses. What are you proposing? Asked. If we can develop a computer virus specifically designed to target assimilated systems, we might be able to turn their strength against them, said, her excitement barely contained. Their drones, their ships, their weapons all rely on integrated technology from dozens of different species. That integration creates vulnerabilities, seams in their armor. Considered this, and if they never reach Sol, if the Council defeats them. His expression darkened. Chancellor, the Council is losing. Every report shows them in retreat. Their defensive line at Helix Sector collapsed 2 days ago. They are adapting faster than the Council can respond, at their current rate of advance. She pulled up a star map showing this projected path. They will reach Sol in approximately 8 months. The room fell silent. 8 months. The Council had not warned them, had not asked for help, had not even acknowledged Earth's existence in their strategic planning. Humanity was on its own, facing an enemy that had destroyed civilizations thousands of years more advanced. Chancellor stood and addressed his Security Council. We prepare for the worst. Accelerate all defense projects. I want every civilian trained in emergency protocols. Convert the lunar colonies to military production, and get me a meeting with the fleet commanders. The meeting took place 2 days later aboard the Indomitable. Admiral looked at the faces of her fellow officers. Commander, steady and determined. Engineer, tired but resolute. Doctor, clutching data pads filled with theoretical weapons designs. Lieutenant, youngest of them all, trying to hide her fear. "We are not ready," said bluntly. "Our fleet is outnumbered and facing an enemy that has crushed civilizations we could not hope to defeat. But we are what Earth has. We are all that stands between humanity and extinction." The Council fleets began. "Are being destroyed," interrupted. "The latest intelligence shows the broke through their last major defensive position. The Council is scattered, retreating to their core worlds. They cannot help us. They cannot even help themselves." Leaned forward. "Then we do not fight like them. The Council has been fighting honorable battles, using standardized tactics, following rules of engagement that have existed for thousands of years. They adapted to those tactics and crushed them." "What are you suggesting?" asked. "We fight like humans," replied. "We cheat. We ambush. We use every dirty trick we have ever developed. We make them pay for every meter of space they try to take." Doctor nodded slowly. "We have one advantage the Council never had. We are primitive. Our technology is so backward, so different from galactic standard, that they will not know how to assimilate it effectively. Our weapons, our tactics, our entire approach to warfare is alien to them." Felt something stirring in her chest. Not hope exactly, but determination. "Then we prepare. We turn the Sol system into a fortress. We use every asteroid, every moon, every piece of space debris as a potential weapon. And when they arrive, we show them what primitives can do." The meeting ended with grim purpose. Across the Sol system, humanity prepared for war. It was not the war they had wanted. It was not the future they had dreamed of when they first achieved FTL travel and reached for the stars. But it was the war they had been given. In the depths of space, thousands of light years away, the Armada continued its relentless advance. Warlord, the supreme commander of the Dominion, reviewed the latest conquests with satisfaction. The galaxy was falling before him. Soon, every species would serve thee or be consumed by them. His strategic AI flagged a minor notation in the database. A species called humans, restricted to a single system, technologically primitive, no military threat assessed. The system was along one of the planned expansion routes. Barely glanced at it before moving on. Primitives. Hardly worth the effort of conquest. He would send a minor fleet to claim their resources and add any useful biological traits to the collective. It would be over in hours. He had no idea that he had just made a fatal mistake. The alert sirens wailed across every human installation in the Sol system. 200 warships had just dropped out of FTL at the edge of the system, their dark hulls bristling with weapons that had destroyed 6 advanced civilizations. Admiral stood on the bridge of the Indomitable, watching the enemy fleet appear on her tactical display like a swarm of locusts. "Signal all ships," she said, her voice calm despite the fear clawing at her chest. "Execute Protocol Hornet's Nest." Lieutenant's fingers flew across her console, relaying orders to the 45 vessels of the Sol Defense Force. They were scattered throughout the system, hiding behind moons, lurking in the asteroid belt, waiting in the shadow of gas giants. They would expect them to gather for a traditional defensive formation. Instead, they would get chaos. The fleet advanced in perfect formation, their movements coordinated by networked AI systems that made them act as a single organism. Sub-Commander, leader of this expeditionary force, studied the primitive system before him. The third planet showed signs of significant development. The fourth had colonies. There were mining operations throughout the asteroid belt and orbital stations around several moons. More developed than expected, but still primitive. His sensors detected the human fleet, their crude fusion drives burning bright and obvious against the cold of space. 45 small vessels against his 200 warships. This would be over quickly. "All ships advance," ordered. Begin bombardment of the third planet's orbital installations. We will eliminate their infrastructure first, then deal with their military forces. The fleet moved forward, maintaining their tight formation. It was a formation that had proven effective against every enemy they had faced. Concentrated firepower, overlapping shields, mutual support. Textbook galactic military doctrine. They crossed into the asteroid belt, and everything went wrong. The asteroids exploded. Not all of them, just specific ones that the fleet had passed. Engineer had spent 6 months hollowing out asteroids and filling them with nuclear weapons, turning them into mines the size of mountains. The explosions tore through the formation, their shields designed to deflect energy weapons, not absorb the raw kinetic force of nuclear detonation at point-blank range. 10 ships died in the first 30 seconds of combat. 15 more were damaged, their perfect formation disrupted. Before they could recover, the human ships struck. Commander led the first wave, 12 frigates dropping out of hiding from behind series. They did not use energy weapons. They used rail guns, ancient projectiles accelerated to a fraction of light speed. The shields, calibrated for lasers and plasma, offered minimal protection against solid metal traveling at incredible velocity. 3 more ships exploded as rail gun slugs punched through their hulls. They adapted quickly, redirecting shield frequencies. But by then, ships were already retreating back into the asteroid field, using the debris as cover. "They are scattering," snarled. "They refuse to face us in open battle, cowards." But his tactical officer looked uncertain. "Sir, we have lost contact with our rear guard. Something is jamming our communications." Doctor's virus had been uploaded to satellites throughout the system. It did not attack the systems directly. Instead, it filled their communication networks with garbage data, disguised to look like legitimate traffic. The sophisticated AI spent precious processing power trying to sort through it, slowing their coordination just enough to matter. The second wave struck from the direction of Jupiter. Admiral led this assault personally, 15 warships emerging from the gas giant's massive magnetosphere. They targeted the command ships, identified by their larger size and central position in the formation. The returned fire, their weapons devastating. The Defiance took a direct hit from a plasma cannon and broke apart, its crew of 93 humans dying instantly. The Resilience lost its engines and tumbled out of control. But the human ships kept coming, their crews knowing that retreat meant death for everyone in the Sol system. Pilot Bora screamed defiance as her fighter squadron dove into the formation. Her ship was hit, shields collapsing, hull breaching, life support failing. She had seconds to live, so she did the only thing that mattered. She aimed her dying fighter at a command ship and pushed her engines to maximum. "For Earth," she whispered, and then her ship struck the vessel at full speed. The explosion was visible from Mars. "What are they doing?" demanded, watching his tactical display in disbelief. "They are sacrificing themselves. No rational species fights this way." But humans were not rational by galactic standards. They were desperate, angry, and terrified. They were also creative in ways that the galaxy had forgotten. Every human ship was a potential weapon. Every damaged vessel could become a missile. Every defeat could be turned into a victory if it cost the enemy enough. Engineer revealed her second surprise. Throughout the asteroid belt, what appeared to be mining stations suddenly came to life. They were not stations. They were weapons platforms, disguised to look like civilian infrastructure. Massive rail guns, magnetic accelerators capable of hurling asteroids themselves at enemy ships, laser arrays cobbled together from industrial cutting equipment. The fleet found itself caught in a crossfire from every direction. They adapted, their AI calculating optimal responses, their shields adjusting, their weapons systems learning to target the irregular human vessels. But adaptation took time, and humans were not giving them time. The battle raged for 36 hours. Space filled with debris, bodies, frozen atmosphere from breached hulls. The human losses were catastrophic. 27 ships destroyed, 4,819 dead. Every family on Earth knew someone who died in the battle. But they paid a higher price. Their tight formations became their weakness in the chaos of human warfare. Their shared networked systems meant that, when one ship was compromised by Doctor's virus, others were affected. Their advanced shields could not protect against the variety of crude weapons humans threw at them. Sub-Commander watched his fleet being torn apart and made a decision that no commander had made in 50 years of conquest. He ordered a retreat. Fall back, all ships, fall back to the system edge. Of the 200 warships that had entered the Sol system, only 73 escaped. His flagship limped into FTL with hull breaches on every deck and half his crew dead. He carried a message that would change the course of the Galactic War. Humanity fights like nothing the galaxy has ever seen. On the bridge of the Indomitable, Admiral collapsed into her command chair. Around her, her crew worked frantically to secure the ship, tend to the wounded, catalog the dead. Lieutenant was crying silently at her station, but her hands never stopped working. Commander's face appeared on the comm screen, his uniform torn and bloody. "We did it, Admiral. They are running." "At what cost?" whispered, looking at the casualty reports scrolling across her screen. So many dead, so many ships destroyed. The Sol system was safe, but it was wounded, bleeding, broken. Engineer's voice came through on a secure channel. "Admiral, we are analyzing the wreckage. If we can salvage their technology." "Do it," said. "We won today, but they will come back. Next time with more ships. We need to be ready." On Earth, Chancellor addressed the planet. Cities were in mourning. Every news feed showed the names and faces of the dead. But there was something else in the collective human consciousness. Pride, defiance. They had been dismissed as primitives, caged in their own system, forgotten by the galaxy. And they had just defeated an enemy that had crushed civilizations thousands of years older. In the depths of space, Warlord received Sub-Commander's report. The Warlord listened in silence as described the battle, the human tactics, the losses sustained. When the report ended, was quiet for a long moment. "Primitives," he said finally. "You lost 127 warships to primitives." "They fight without honor," protested. "Without rules. They use suicide attacks, hidden weapons, deception." "They fight to survive," interrupted. "As do we. If these humans are as dangerous as you claim, then they must be destroyed before they can grow stronger. I will send 3 more fleets. The Sol system will burn, and these humans will be nothing but a footnote in history." But somewhere in his cold, calculating mind felt something unfamiliar, something that no had felt in their entire campaign of conquest. He felt doubt. The news of humanity's victory spread through the galaxy like wildfire. In the great halls of Prime, what remained of the Galactic Council watched the battle recordings in stunned silence. The same officials who had dismissed Earth 3 years ago now saw primitive fusion drive ships tearing apart our armada using tactics that every rule of civilized warfare. Ambassador, the who had mocked humanity's violent history, reviewed the footage for the 5th time. The human ships fought with a savagery that was disturbing and yet undeniably effective. They turned asteroids into bombs, mining equipment into weapons, and their own damaged vessels into missiles. It was brutal, wasteful, and completely outside galactic military doctrine. It had also worked when nothing else had. They lost nearly 2/3 of their fleet, a representative observed. Such losses would break any civilized military. "And yet they won," replied quietly. "While we, with all our superior technology and 1,000-year-old tactical wisdom, continue to lose." The council chambers filled with uncomfortable silence. In the 2 months since the Battle of Sol, they had advanced deeper into council space. 4 more civilizations had fallen. The great defensive fleets had been scattered. Prime itself was now under threat, the capital world that had stood unconquered for 3,000 years. On Earth, the aftermath of battle was everywhere. Memorial services were held in every city. The names of the dead were carved into monuments that would stand forever, but humanity did not have time to mourn properly. Admiral pushed her people to rebuild, rearm, and prepare for the next attack. Engineer worked miracles with the wreckage. The destroyed enemy ships provided technology decades ahead of anything humanity possessed. Shield generators, power systems, weapon designs, all of it was reverse-engineered and adapted to human vessels. The Sol Defense Force was being rebuilt, stronger and faster than before. Doctor refined her virus, studying the patterns of adaptation. She discovered that their greatest strength was also a critical weakness. They assimilated everything, but that meant their systems had to be compatible with dozens of different technologies. That compatibility created vulnerabilities that could be exploited by someone clever enough to find them. Commander trained new recruits in the tactics that had won the Battle of Sol. Young men and women who had never expected to become soldiers learned how to fight without honor, how to turn every resource into a weapon, how to make the enemy pay for every victory. "They will return," told his trainees. "They will come with more ships, better prepared for our tactics. We must be ready to adapt faster than they can. We must be willing to do whatever it takes to protect our home." 2 months after the battle, a damaged ship appeared at the edge of the Sol system. It was barely functional, its FTL drive held together by emergency repairs, its hull by weapons. It broadcast a request for asylum and carried a single passenger. Ambassador was brought to Earth under heavy security. Chancellor met with the ambassador in a conference room deep beneath New Geneva. It was the first face-to-face meeting between human and council leadership since the rejection 3 years ago. His translator converted its clicking mandibles into words. "Chancellor, I come to you not as a representative of the council, but as a supplicant. My people are dying. They have destroyed our colony worlds and are advancing on our. In 3 weeks, they will reach Prime. When they do, galactic civilization as we know it will end." Leaned back in his chair, studying the alien that had once called humanity primitive. "Why come to us? We are, as you once said, children playing with tools we barely understand." His features could not show shame, but its voice carried the weight of it. "I was wrong. We were all wrong. We measured you by technology alone and failed to see what truly makes a civilization strong. You have something we lost long ago, the will to fight without limits, to sacrifice everything for survival." "What are you asking?" said. "Military assistance. The Council will grant humanity full membership, unrestricted access to galactic technology, territorial rights to 20 uninhabited systems. In exchange, we ask that you help us defend Prime." Admiral, present at the meeting, spoke up. "You want us to join a losing war, to risk the lives of more humans for a council that rejected us?" "Yes," said simply. "I cannot offer guarantees of victory. I can only offer the truth. If Prime falls, they will control the galaxy's center. From there, they will expand in all directions. Eventually, they will return to Sol with overwhelming force. Helping us is helping yourselves." Chancellor dismissed and convened his Security Council. The debate was fierce. Lieutenant argued that Sol was barely recovered from the first battle. Commander pointed out that 3 weeks was not enough time to rebuild their fleet properly. Engineer noted that human technology still lagged far behind galactic standards. But Admiral saw the bigger picture. "Alone, we might survive the next attack, maybe even the one after that, but eventually they will overwhelm us. The galaxy needs to survive if humanity is to have any future beyond our own system." Doctor agreed. "And if we help them, we gain access to their technology, their resources, their knowledge. We accelerate our development by decades, maybe centuries." Chancellor made his decision. "We help them, but we do it on our terms. The Council learns to fight the human way. The next day met with Ambassador again. Humanity will assist in the defense of Prime, but you must accept our command structure, our tactics, and our methods. No restrictions, no rules of engagement, no civilized warfare. We fight to win by any means necessary. Did not hesitate, agreed. The Sol Defense Force, rebuilt to 60 ships in the 2 months since the battle, prepared to leave the Sol system for the first time as a military force. Admiral addressed her fleet before departure. 3 years ago, the galaxy dismissed us. They called us primitive, violent, unworthy. Today, they beg for our help because their civilized ways have failed them. We go now not to prove ourselves to them, but to ensure humanity's survival. They will not stop with Prime. They will not stop until every free species is conquered or destroyed. So we fight, not for the Council, but for Earth, for the future we build among the stars. The fleet departed Sol with a mixture of human and Council vessels. The Council ships were technologically superior, but their crews were demoralized, traumatized by constant defeat. The human ships were crude, but their crews burned with determination. As they traveled toward Prime, Admiral met with the Council fleet commanders. She showed them the recordings of the Battle of Sol, explaining every tactic, every sacrifice, every brutal choice that led to victory. "This is not how we fight," a captain protested. "Using civilian infrastructure as weapons, suicide attacks, deception. These violate every principle of honorable combat." "Then your principles are killing you," Commander replied bluntly. "They do not care about honor. They care about victory. Either you learn to fight like us, or you die like everyone before you." Engineer worked with Council technicians, showing them how to weaponize civilian systems, how to turn commercial vessels into military assets, how to make every resource count. Doctor shared her virus designs, teaching Council programmers to think like hackers instead of engineers. The transformation was difficult. Galactic civilization had spent developing rules, protocols, and civilized approaches to conflict. Humanity was asking them to throw away thousands of years of cultural evolution and embrace the brutal pragmatism of a species that had spent its entire existence fighting for survival. But they were desperate enough to try. 3 weeks later, the combined fleet arrived at Prime. Warlord's main armada was already in the system, 500 warships strong, beginning their assault on the capital world. The defense grid was failing. Civilian evacuation ships fled the planet in panic. The end of galactic civilization was at hand. Admiral studied the tactical display and smiled grimly. They expected another conventional battle. They expected the Council forces to form defensive lines, to fight honorably, to lose as every other civilization had lost. They were about to learn that humanity had taught the galaxy a new way to fight, and the galaxy, desperate and cornered, had proven to be quick learners. Warlord watched Prime burn from the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Dominion. 500 warships surrounded the capital world of the Galactic Council, systematically destroying its orbital defenses. In a matter of hours, the planet would fall, and with it, the last organized resistance to expansion. Then his tactical officer reported something unexpected. "Warlord, we detect incoming vessels. Profile matches Council signatures," and the officer paused, confused. "And the human ships from Sector 887. Remembered subcommander's report about the primitives who had somehow destroyed an entire expeditionary fleet. He had dismissed it as exaggeration, the excuses of a commander trying to explain defeat. Now those same humans were here, their crude fusion drives burning bright against the darkness of space. "How many ships?" demanded. 60 human vessels and approximately 90 Council ships, his officer replied. His mandibles clicked in what passed for laughter. 150 ships against his 500. This would be a massacre. All ships, turn to engage the new arrivals. We will crush them and then finish Prime at our leisure. Admiral stood on the bridge of the Indomitable, watching the massive fleet begin to reposition. Around her, her crew worked with practiced efficiency, their movements smooth despite the fear they all felt. This battle would make the Battle of Saul look small by comparison. "Signal all ships," ordered. "Execute Operation Wildfire." The combined fleet did not advance in formation. Instead, they scattered, breaking into small groups that spread out across the system. The fleet, trained in conventional warfare, attempted to maintain formation while targeting the dispersed enemy vessels. It was like trying to swat flies with a sledgehammer. Commander led the first strike. His squad of 15 ships, a mixture of human frigates and council cruisers, moved toward what appeared to be a gap in the formation. It was bait. The command ships were positioned there, waiting to trap any enemy foolish enough to attack. But was not attacking the command ships. He was attacking the fuel depot vessels, massive tankers that supplied the fleet with antimatter and exotic fuels. They had never needed to protect their supply ships before. No civilized species would target non-combat vessels. 3 fuel tankers exploded in brilliant bursts of energy. The formation wavered as ships suddenly found themselves rationing fuel, unable to maneuver as freely as before. In the chaos, Squad disappeared behind a nearby moon before they could retaliate. "What are they doing?" snarled. "They attack our supply ships. This is a violation of every rule of." "Warlord, their fleet is not fighting as a unit," his tactical officer interrupted. "Each group is operating independently, targeting different objectives. We cannot predict their movements." Engineer revealed her contribution to the battle. She had worked with council technicians to modify several council freighters, massive cargo vessels that normally hauled goods across the galaxy. Now those freighters accelerated toward the fleet, broadcasting surrender signals. They scanned the vessels and detected no weapons, no shields, only civilians attempting to flee the battle. Standard protocol was to ignore them and focus on military targets, but these freighters were not fleeing. They were accelerating toward the formation at maximum speed. By the time they realized the deception, it was too late. Each freighter was filled with explosives, nuclear weapons, and conventional warheads packed so densely that the ships were essentially flying bombs. They detonated among the fleet, their explosions by the antimatter in nearby fuel tanks. 40 ships died in an instant, roared in fury, but his anger was just beginning. Doctor's virus was released across all communication channels. It appeared as standard battlefield chatter, tactical updates, status reports. The AI systems processed it automatically, incorporating the data into their tactical models. Too late, they realized the data was corrupted, filled with subtle errors that seemed real but led to catastrophic miscalculations. Ships fired on their own vessels, their targeting systems compromised. Their shields dropped at critical moments. Their formations broke apart as ships received conflicting orders. The virus spread through their networked systems like a plague, turning their integration into vulnerability. Admiral led the main assault with 30 ships, driving straight towards flagship. They expected her to use the same chaotic tactics as the rest of the fleet. Instead, she fought in tight formation, using concentrated firepower to punch through the defensive screen. It was a feint within a feint. While focused on assault, Commander led a strike team through the confusion in captured vessels. The ships, salvaged from the wreckage at Saul and disguised with identification codes, passed through the enemy formation unchallenged until they reached their target. The Eternal Dominion, Warlord's flagship. His team breached the hull using cutting charges and poured into the massive vessel. The interior of the ship was a nightmare landscape of biological and mechanical integration, organic tissue fused with metal living computers grown from engineered flesh. Warriors, enhanced with assimilated technologies from a dozen species, met them in the corridors. The fighting was brutal and personal. carried a simple combat rifle, human-made, reliable. His soldiers used grenades, knives, whatever worked. No honor, no mercy, just survival. They fought through deck after deck, leaving bodies behind them, losing soldiers with every step. Waited in his command chamber, surrounded by his elite guard. When and his remaining team crashed through the doors, the warlord rose to meet them. Was massive, enhanced with biological upgrades from 6 different species, his body a weapon that had killed hundreds in personal combat. The fight lasted 4 minutes. Soldiers died one by one, buying time with their lives. In the end, it was just an circling each other in a chamber slick with blood and other fluids. His left arm was broken, his ribs cracked, but his rifle still worked. "You cannot defeat me," said through his translator. "I have the strength of empires in my body." "I do not need to be stronger," replied and fired. The bullets tore through the enhanced flesh. The warlord fell, disbelief in his dying eyes. He had conquered civilizations, assimilated technologies beyond imagination, made himself into something beyond a normal being. And he died to simple bullets fired by a primitive human with a broken arm. With dead, the command structure collapsed. Their networked systems, already compromised by this virus, fell into chaos. Ships began to retreat independently, their coordination broken. The fleet, which had never retreated before, which had crushed every opponent they had faced, broke and ran. The combined human and council fleet pursued them without mercy. Damaged ships were destroyed. Fleeing vessels were hunted down. By the time the battle ended, less than 100 of the 500 ships escaped. The rest were debris, bodies, and salvage. Admiral sat in her command chair, exhausted beyond words. Around her, her crew was celebrating, crying, collapsing from the stress of battle. The casualty reports came in. 23 human ships destroyed, 37 council vessels lost, 6,214 dead. But they had won. The unstoppable conquerors who had destroyed civilizations had been defeated. Commander returned to the Indomitable 6 hours later, carried on a stretcher, his injuries severe but survivable. He briefed from his medical bed. "Is dead. I took his command codes. With those and virus, we can shut down every vessel still in operation." Across the galaxy, the remaining forces suddenly found their systems failing. Ships lost power, weapons went offline, life support stuttered. Without their warlord and without their integrated systems, they were just another species, no longer invincible. The war was over. On Prime, Ambassador stood with Admiral on the balcony of the council chambers. The city below was damaged but alive, its people emerging from shelters to see a sky clear of enemy ships for the first time in months. "We were wrong about your people," said quietly. "We saw your primitive technology and assumed primitive minds. We forgot that civilizations are not built by technology alone. They are built by will, determination, and the refusal to surrender." Chancellor arrived from Earth 3 days later to formalize humanity's entry into the Galactic Council. But the ceremony was different from what Earth had imagined 3 years ago. Humanity was not joining as a junior member, begging for acceptance. They entered as the military power that had saved the galaxy from extinction. The Council offered generous terms: full membership, access to all galactic technology, territorial rights to 50 systems instead of 20, and a permanent seat on the Security Council. Earth accepted, but on one condition. "We will share our military knowledge," said. "We will teach you how to fight, how to survive, how to win. But in exchange, the galaxy must change. No more dismissing species based on technology alone. No more assuming that older means better or that primitive means weak." The Council agreed. In the months that followed, doctor and engineer began working with galactic scientists and engineers. Human military doctrine was studied, adapted, incorporated into Council defense forces. The galaxy learned that there was more than one way to fight, more than one path to strength. Earth's colonies spread beyond Sol for the first time. Human ships, now equipped with advanced galactic technology but maintaining their aggressive, adaptive approach to warfare, patrolled trade routes and defended council worlds. Humanity had arrived on the galactic stage not as observers, but as leaders. 3 years after being dismissed as primitives, humanity had proven something the galaxy had forgotten. Technology makes civilization possible, but it is the spirit of a species, their will to survive and adapt, that makes them truly formidable. The galaxy had underestimated Earth's children once. They would not make that mistake again. And in the Sol system, where it all began, monuments stood to remember the battles fought and the lives lost. They bore a simple inscription, words that captured the essence of humanity's journey to the stars. We were dismissed as primitive. We proved them wrong. We will never forget who we are.